Windhorse is our innate ability to uplift ourselves and our environment by giving rise to a positive energy that is both relaxed and disciplined. Since 1981, Windhorse Community Services has integrated this understanding with modern conventional therapies, meditation, and contemplative traditions in the development of at-home, whole-person mental health recovery. Windhorse Journal is dedicated to the mission of communicating decades of clinical and personal experience to professionals, educators, students, and anyone seeking recovery options. Please join the dialogue.
Welcome to the 8th entry in our Windhorse Journal series on basic attendance, relationships that invite health, community programs. This conversation reveals the vast manifestations of community programs at Windhorse and how it can be the perfect addition for healing and recovery. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome everyone to this podcast of the Windhorse Journal. This is the 8th in a series on the clinical practice of basic attendance, and today we'll be focusing on the activity of the community programs team. So joining us are 4 members of the team, and I'm going to go ahead and read your bios here. So Silvan, prior to working with us at Windhorse Community Services, Silvan Erb-Summers was a high school art teacher and recreational tree climbing instructor. He holds a master's in somatic counseling psychology and dance movement therapy from Europa University. And he has worked with us as a housemate and as a team counselor, and is also a community programs facilitator. Are you okay with that?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I'm still teaching tree climbing though. I was just up about 50 feet up in a big old growth cottonwood last weekend.
That's really interesting. I have questions. Okay. Mike Levy uses he, him, and his as pronouns and is a longtime clinician at Windhorse Community Services. He's currently the community programs administrator. That means you basically run the show. You're the person we can blame for things. Anyway. And while having been in that position for about a year, before that, you were involved in groups as a participant and group facilitator. Outside of community programs, Mike, you also have a very full life as a father, husband, photographer, meditator, and lover of nature, and you bring those passions into your community activities whenever possible. Erik Castro. Beginning as a housemate with Windhorse in 2016, I have since completed Master of Social Work and Master of Public Health degrees from Colorado State University and Colorado School of Public Health, respectively. I currently hold the positions of team counselor, assistant team leader, and community programs activities coordinator. Laurie. Hey. Laurie Dameron is a peer support specialist, working as a team counselor at Windhorse Community Services since February of 2022. She is also a professional musician and environmental activist, and has worked with a Windhorse client that loves to do research on environmental issues since January of 2020. Laurie, you do a lot of music work in the community, don't you?
Yeah, quite a bit. My day job before COVID was entertaining seniors, nursing home. I still do a few of those, but I love to play concerts and festivals and art events and music for any occasion.
Yeah, I've been around some of that. It's really great.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate this today. And we'll start with just basically describing what community programs is. I'll maybe just say a quick note here. We recognized for a long time, since the beginning really, that teams, while having a very valuable capacity to hold people as they come into treatment and work with us, that we always had to create things fresh to give people more social exposure, more connection to the community outside of the team. Each team, we were kind of cooking this up fresh. And we started working in the early 90s with the clubhouse at Boulder Mental Health. And we found that this was a client empowerment model. So the clients weren't going there to receive therapy. The staff and the clients were coming together, and actually it was a small professional staff, and mostly folks that were clients of the mental health center coming together to hold and develop this community. And part of it was to help people come in, get a broader social context, not be so lonely, and then find their way into employment. They had a really strong employment services component. So we really enjoyed working with them for years. And in 2012, we're fortunate enough to be able to create our own. It wasn't a clubhouse exactly; it was community programs, and Mike, you'll describe more about what that means. And we still worked collaboratively with the clubhouse. And one of the people who'd been a leader in developing the clubhouse over the years came and worked with us. It was Joanne Dorio-Burton, who I think all of you know. So anyway, I could stop there and then let you all take it from there.
Sure thing, Chuck. No, it's really helpful to be reminded of how this came about and the relationship to teams early on. Feels like we can say that the goals of community programs are further practicing like an outer circle of relational medicine. It's a lot more dynamic, always know who you're going to be interacting with. There's a lot of shared passion going on, and there's an activity of some sort. But it really rhymes with the kind of grounding we all have in relationships that come out of these groups. So some people might say all of the groups are different groups, and they're an excuse to be in relationship in a new way. So for some people, that leads to work readiness and practicing different skills that they want to take to a competitive job. For other people, that just opens up their world a little bit beyond the team, widens their schedule, and emboldens them to find more connections out in the larger society around us. But community is really made up of the people involved. So I think Joanne brought a lot of psychosocial education piece, and from the clubhouse model, some direct learning, and that really magnetized classes and readiness groups at that time, as well as the pillars of food and movement that were going on through the week. And our team now is split up with a lot of different passions, and so we see groups that are focused on the things that people who are leading the groups now care about. So there's a lot of continuity in the sense that groups keep evolving. The interest of the communities tends to lead if groups stick around or not. But the feeling that it's an outer circle, it's connected to the team, it's part of the ongoing curve of recovery, and we're all getting our mutual recovery involved, our own needs met. We actually enjoy what we're doing, and we often lose touch with who's staff and who's clients and who's family. Trialogue is invited.
What's the trialogue?
So community programs are all open to the staff here at Windhorse, our clients, sometimes extended community as well, clients and families, and the families of clients. So we often see mostly our current staff and clients, but the trialogue includes that whole interconnect. What we try to do in community programs is meet clients and teams where they're at. So we have a lot of flexibility. We can creatively adapt to achievable steps to get someone involved in a larger group or maybe even group leadership. Some of those ways include one-on-one social pods, or often two clients with one community programs facilitator to lead a social pod that is separate and committed. That group meets weekly in a committed way, gets to know each other, and a group facilitator is responsible for tracking the timing and setting that up. So that's one way for folks to get comfortable outside of their team, maybe leading towards more experimenting in groups at community programs.
Mike, so that, for instance, would be something that someone who's very shy and has it's not easy to step into a group setting might find as a stepping stone out of being a little more closely held in their home to going out and joining people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one reason for it. Shyness is a good way to put it, or some hesitation. It can be intimidating just imagining jumping into a group and you don't know how big it's going to be and strangers. There's a lot of communication between teams, new clients coming in, and if they're interested, how to stay in touch with one of us to better get to know what those groups are about, maybe how many people are involved, all that. And this was how we got through COVID in some ways too, was creating smaller groups and creative adaptations about how to meet people where they're at. So a social pod could be a reason to be in touch with someone else when you didn't feel safe physically, masked and uncertain sickness going around. We could have a committed group that is a safer step. So that's another, I guess, version of shyness.
Yeah, yeah. Mike, hang on a second now. This could be a good place for someone else to bring another dimension of community programs and just to get somebody else's voice started.
I think so. Yeah, that'd be great. Um,
So does anybody else have anything they'd want to throw in here about what y'all do?
While Michael was speaking, I was thinking about a pod that I had done at first with just this one guy. We were going out to eat and that type of thing, and then a second client came into the picture, and it was great. They liked each other, and it was great to see them interact. I view it as a success because the one client that I originally started working with, he decided to end the pod because he wanted to develop relationships outside of Windhorse.
So you kind of help somebody jumpstart their capacity and interest to just start making relationships.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
so socialized, yeah.
I wonder if I could invite you in, Sylvan, to talk about the rides we offer and for a period of time, home delivery food.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like at the heart of community programs is community, right? And the fact that I like that you said, sometimes we'll be at a community program and people won't know who's staff and who's clients and who's friends of clients or, friends of staff that are there. My partners come to different things, and it's just a nice place for people to just be genuine and be real with each other. But also there's this space of like kind of non-judgment that we try to create where people can just show up as they are wherever they are in their healing journey. I think that's really important because there's oftentimes there's a lot of societal stigma about, if you're working with a mental health challenge. And so having a place that you can come and be connected and feel a part of a group without that judgment, I think is a really powerful element of healing. And, we talk a lot about this element of mutual recovery, and we usually talk about it as like staff are in their own recovery process of how to be more, how to live their life in a healthier way as well. But in community programs, there's a lot of mutual recovery between clients because they get to share their challenges, their triumphs, make friendships. Yeah, so part of that community is, it looks a lot of different ways. And one way is, going and picking people up if they can't make it to a group, offering rides. Another peer support specialist, Joe, and I have been doing an outings group for a long time. And every week we take people out into the community. It's an opportunity. A lot of people that come to Windhorse aren't necessarily local. So it's an opportunity for them to get familiar with the area and, what are some fun things to do. Last week we went to the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, and one particular person had a pretty powerful experience there. And then, we just walked across the street to the Dushanbe Tea House and got ourselves a nice quiet corner and had tea together and some dessert and, got to share a little bit about our experience, just an opportunity to share and connect. And I think it's really helpful often for people if they're feeling kind of stuck in their recovery to be able to get out of the house and get into the community a little bit, connect with other people.
What are some other things, Sylvan, that you all do in the outings group?
Well, this year during the winter, kind of every other week, we're going to a movie. Movies have gotten really long these days. Some of them are like 3+ hours. But if we have a shorter movie, we usually go and get some a snack or something before or after, and be able to talk about the movie and hang out a little bit. But in between that, we're out in the community. Just one day we just kind of explored Pearl Street together, checking out different museums and things. During when it's a little warmer, we're out, on walks in nature. We've done longer trips up to Rocky Mountain National Park, up to Netherland to explore the mountain town, things like that. And we have the possibility of doing a little ski trip coming up. So it's really has to do with what clients are interested in. There's a couple clients that are really interested in skiing, so we're going to create a skiing trip. But that's one of the beauties of community programs. It's kind of like whatever clients are interested in, whatever staff's interested in, and we build a program around that.
Yeah, I've been co-facilitating the lunch club with Silvan, and lunch club. Well, we eat the dinner club's leftovers from the night before, and then we sit around and have great conversation. But we always do a check-in, and lately it's been really exciting for me to see these two clients supporting each other with like a similar issue, and talking about connecting outside of that lunch club, maybe getting on a Zoom together. And then, as Sylvan mentioned early on, that we all, in our check-ins, we share our challenges and successes. And I'm thinking of the one gal client. She's a writer, and she has shared in the past couple of months, she's had 2 of her writings accepted by a magazine that are going to be published. So that's like really exciting to hear. And then a client that is going through a transgender change was really excited one day, showing that she got her new driver's license as a she and with her new name. So that was really exciting to see.
The client you're referring to was considering being part of this podcast, but she's at a phase of her transition that she just felt a little too vulnerable to be on a screen sharing her story this way. So we're holding her presence here, but she's just not with us today. Thanks for mentioning that, Laurie.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting subtopic, how we take into account safety and, particular interests at Windhorse. So, one of our groups, the Queer Together group, was a closed group for a long time. Clients only, queer and queer questioning, to process in a way that was different than they wanted to process with their therapist. They just wanted, it was an ally group. And so it was important for us to make room for that. And I think out of that has become a new inspiration for that group to expand to the larger community, to study queer issues and culture, movies, writings, try things out and open it up. But for a while, we needed that to be a closed space. And we've done that with other groups as well, that we actually ask for a commitment. And so the group does stay a little bit more static over time. It's the same for people. Our Inspiration Club was that way. And that, I think, helped some clients know who they're going to see each time, better understand the sort of longer curve of activity that's going to happen there. So just another form of flexibility that we try to bring if it's needed.
I want to just comment on the queer exploration and creating safety like you are. And I think that is having a real impact on the greater community. The awareness raising within community programs is also radiating out into the greater culture of Windhorse Community Services. So it's interesting how that dynamic is happening too.
This intention of flexibility and creativity and where is their energy. Some of the motivation this year has been to connect to Boulder society as well, not just clients and families are a strong distinction, but to create gatherings where anyone can come and relate to the public around a shared interest. So we became members of the Boulder Art Walk, for instance, and we opened up our space to the artists in the community, again, staff, clients, and family, to come and show, sell, or just share in the discussion and the display of art with the public. So the public would come through and everyone would get a chance to talk about their passion and their work and maybe sell some. So there was a real equality to that. So we've tried to keep an eye on ways, like in the outings group or in other ways, we can stay in relationship with the larger Boulder community. This was true of our kickball team this year as well. It's that with no real reference to Windhorse community programs, we called ourselves the Wind Riders, and just competed as anyone would, with an evolving team, with other groups in Boulder, and relied on each other. You know, I needed whoever it was on first base to be on my team, and it wasn't such a power differential like you've mentioned before, Silvan. So that was great fun, and we have to be careful. So there's a lot of planning that goes into that too, both physically and practically.
There were some great stories that came out of that territory this year, and I'm wondering, Erik, this could be a good time to create a thread through this. What do you think?
Yeah, just one thing before I say the story, and I'm sure it'll become apparent, is just I think everyone's really touched on so far is the flexibility of community programs. So we have the intimate level of the pod, as Michael and Laurie mentioned. We have these bigger groups, like the outings group, as Silvan mentioned. And then again, we have these even more public facing, like the art walk experiences and outings. So in that way, community programs really caters and works with whatever level of engagement clients are really wanting and ready to work with. So yeah, I have a short story from my experience working with client Sophia, and all names and the likenesses have been altered for this podcast to protect client confidentiality. I've appreciated seeing Sophia's engagements over time. Sophia came to Windhorse a few years ago, and her primary social contacts outside of the Windhorse team were primarily her parents. Through her time on the team, she gained some self-confidence, and in her own time, she was ready to try a community program's traditional events, like the dinner club. And we can talk about all the different groups we have, but she tried dinner club. She tried just one or two of these other different groups, the garden group, just to try it. She tried it and said, actually, this isn't something that I really want to engage with right now. So later on, working with community programs, I was a pod facilitator, and we asked Sophia, would you be interested in joining a pod with one other client? And you can have a more specific interaction of an activity that you two like to do together, and I would just facilitate, as we mentioned earlier. And Sophia said yes. She said, I'm interested, and I'm not ready to do this big 10 people group, but 3 people, yes, let's do it. So it worked. We had Sophia and another client, and they really started bonding over sports. They loved watching football and basketball on TV together, and they created a relationship that it was great just to see them enjoying each other's company in a way that I hadn't seen Sophia interact with another client or other people in that way previously. So time goes on, and naturally the pod comes to a conclusion as the other pod member leaves. Sophia, at that point, is now engaged, and she suggests, well, why don't we have more people? I kind of like this football, basketball events happening. So I'd like to have some people come over to my house. So, okay, so we're moving from a 3-person pod to having 5 or 6 people at Sophia's house coming over once a week. We're getting popcorn, we're watching whatever sports we want to watch. Enlarges the container of Sophia's social network again, that runs its course after a few months, and then said, okay, well, we're done with this for now. And then later on, as I find out, is Sophia was wanting to start working, wanting to engage in work. And that's another aspect of what community programs offers is employment assistance. So Sophia worked with Michael to get started with Mindful Works, which you may have heard about in another episode. And now Sophia is working 3 days a week at Mindful Works on her own regularly. And she's met other people. She's making social connections there. She has a friend that she hangs out with on her own time. And that's outside of the team. So that's basically where my story ends. But just watching the development of Sophia from primarily having basically just team and family contacts a few years back, and the process of phases to being where she is working regularly at a job, making friends on her own accord.
Cool.
So that really did show a nice arc for Sophia about how, as I recall, she was fairly isolated other than the team and family, which I think it was good for that period of time, but really making movement out into the Windhorse community and now outside of the Windhorse community and work to boot.
Yeah, I'm reminded of my experience in that group, Erik, when you mention it and the parts that I was there for, and then hearing some of the ones that I wasn't. But I don't know, what comes to mind to me is this idea of positive vulnerability. That Sophia didn't have to be finished with confident building and social interaction to host. I just remember how much appreciation I had for being hosted in their house, and community programs footing the bill on pizza, and then how we navigated kind of COVID safety rule, and one pizza room and one watching room, and never the two shall meet, and we find ways to make it work, and we also found that it was important to celebrate together, whether it was a birthday or just appreciating Sophia's generosity in hosting and making room for that, actually starting well. And for those that do make a long-term commitment, we get to know each other, almost circumstantially. Maybe that wasn't the idea to begin with, but relationship evolves. So, we make a point to then celebrate and grieve, depending on what's needed in relationship in groups that continue over time. I want to make sure that we have time to talk about holidays and just special events. And I want to invite you, Laurie, to just share some of your experience of some of our recent holidays and how we've been able to fill the space with celebration, food, music, and relationship.
Okay, well, yeah, we did a big celebration on Thanksgiving Day and also on Christmas Day. And, some people have a hard time with the holidays. And so we provided a place to come and great food to eat. I especially remember our Christmas celebration was really, really fun. We had food and the white elephant exchange for the presents, and that was really fun, and people really had a good time with that.
It's a good point of how community programs can look like 3 people spending time together, or it can be a holiday celebration like our winter holiday celebration where there's probably 30 people there. People can connect wherever they're comfortable.
That was the most fun thing I've done all year. I came in a little bit late to the white elephant gathering, and Mike, you have a hidden talent as kind of an MC and making jokes, and people are stealing each other's presents, and it was just really fun. I can be kind of socially anxious, and so it's really fun when I go to a group that's that size, that's that playful, and I feel at home, and everybody looks like they're having a pretty good time.
Yeah, no, those are fun, and it's maybe a useful time to say that sometimes in the past that had included many family members, staff that don't come to other things, catered and cooking, and it takes a village kind of feeling, for these big Thanksgiving and holiday gatherings. And there is great humor, and we just get to know each other over time. So I've seen people be more boisterous and vulnerable and talented at these gatherings, then even after working for years on teams together with my coworkers and with clients and meeting their families. We do these events also, that we basically they're talent shows. People sign up. We call them a coffee house or an open mic, and people sign up and share and read a poetry but we need audience as much as we need, players. And so you witness one or two, and then you feel bold enough to join, a 4-person Beatles song, or we bring a karaoke machine out, and it is humbling and inspiring. So there's some kind of really getting to know each other, and then there's some real talent that comes out of that too. I've seen people sort of try things out in community programs and then pursue it, and go deeper with their writing or their singing or their painting, and we're cheerleading them on and really trying to find a place for that to evolve into a real career path. So that's something I think you're humble about, Laurie. I appreciate you bringing your musical history to our community. It's a real privilege to get to listen.
Laurie, I want to come back to when you were talking about people's talents and passion and exploring, helping people find their passion and connection in the world. And you've been working with someone for a few years now in a research project. I'm curious if you could say something about that.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for Joanne Dorio for setting this up, working with this one client, because he loves to do research especially on environmental issues. And so for a couple of years, we worked on a PowerPoint presentation, which is ready to be presented now. But the presentation's about how is the city of Boulder doing with its zero waste ordinance. In 2016, the city of Boulder created the zero waste ordinance. Zero doesn't mean absolutely zero. It's as close as you can come to divert things from going in the landfill by recycling and composting. So in 2016, it became required for all residential and all businesses to have recycle, compost, and trash. So a zero waste station. And so our presentation is all about how has the city done with that in these past 6-7 years. And this client is just, I can't say enough about, he's brilliant with these things. And so we've come up with a really nice presentation, and we hope to educate the Windhorse community and perhaps beyond.
Yeah, it's a really big deal for him.
I'm curious, Laurie, what kind of research you and this client have done to create your presentation, or the steps you've done together to get it ready?
Well, we collected a lot of photos from when I was out and about, like at restaurants, taking pictures of what's in their recycle and compost bins, just to point out one of the biggest problems with the whole zero waste ordinance is contamination. And that's simply where people put the wrong items in the wrong bins. And if a bin is more than 35% contaminated, it's rejected from the commercial compost, and it's going to end up in the landfill. And so, and then we did a lot of Googling for just ways to educate people about simple actions and the correct way of cycling. We stuck in a couple of videos. One video was from a country in South America where kids were going into the landfills and pulling out debris and making musical instruments out of them. This client, he's an endless source of things that we can research. And so together we've put together a really nice program.
And you're planning to do a presentation to the community soon, aren't you? The full Windhorse community?
Yeah, hopefully, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's another benefit to the flexibility that we have in community programs is that we can quickly gather the staff to hold a container for someone to present what that's important to them. And then we can put that out in the same way that we announce all of our other community programs groups, see if there's an audience ready. And we can really manifest something, I think, more quickly than the organization at large. We have a lot of fleet of foot ability with a small team and a lot of interest.
So all of what we've talked about, helping people find friendships, relationships in community, helping find your passion, making a place a safe place to explore being out in the world. These are all really powerful elements of a recovery path, and at the same time, there's all of this in a certain way has a certain element of work and working toward some kind of work type activities. And it'd be interesting to hear us kind of play with that because that's a big part of what we're doing in community programs.
Thanks, Chuck. I think Windhorse takes the clinical model and turns it on its head. So it's a little bit of a rebellion in the traditional psychotherapy world. So this piece of really focusing on relationship, and but when I worked where there's more of a clinical element present, one woman who had been there for a long time said two of the biggest predictors of mental health are sleep and employment. And I really found that to be true in one way or another. I would add, regular calorie intake is really important there too. But this piece of employment can look really different depending on where people are at in their recovery path. So for one person, like their job for the day might just be to get out of bed. For another person, it might be stretching themselves to join a pod where you're working with there's two clients and one staff person, and you're getting together and going out into the community. Or maybe it's just getting together at home to have tea or something or play a game. And that's their work because it's challenging for them because they have social anxiety. For instance, another person's work might be to just show up at a community program. And we really try to meet clients where they're at. So depending on where people are, trying to make things as accessible as possible. So if somebody comes to a dinner group and it's a little overwhelming for them, the energy of cooking in the larger group, they can leave the kitchen and go into the community room and hang out and hang out on their phone or just rest or something if they want to, and come back if they want to. They can always leave whenever they want to. When we do the outings group, we always bring two cars. So if somebody is really having a hard time, one of us can bring them back home. So really trying to provide as many options for people as possible to kind of meet everybody where they're at, give them an opportunity to work, and that might be just connecting with other people, or leading into work with Department of Vocational Rehab, and maybe Mike can say a little bit more about that. But another bridge between those two things is a lot of times clients are interested in something and then they create their own group. So we've had people create a photography group. Someone right now is helping me with a dinner group, and they're really into cooking and kind of a bit of a foodie. So we get together and plan meals. And also, it's an opportunity to bridge that gap between having a lot of focus on oneself as a quote client and starting to open up more and what are other people's needs and how can I kind of serve other people in their recovery and start to give back to the community.
Definitely want to come back to the giving back part, and I'm curious. Sylvan, that was a nice kind of description of meeting people where they are in the notion of work, and I'm curious. You mentioned Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, and Mike, I think you were gonna say something about actual kind of employment services.
Right. Yeah, this word actual. is important because, like Silvan is saying, everything that's going on, it kind of blends pleasure and pressure, is what was coming to mind. Is that once people start enjoying themselves, they don't realize they're working. The dinner group actually needs a lot done in a short amount of time. And so Silvan's often delegating and needs help, gathering this and the timing around the stir fry. And there's a lot of pressure in that system, but people so enjoy having the task and having some ownership in the meal. We're sometimes cooking for 10 to 20 people. And so the portions are big and we need the help. So needing each other starts to become really enjoyable and we forget the time is passing, but stuff's getting done. So there's some natural pressure that develops out of the pleasure of being together. All of that in some ways is work skills, right? We adapt those skills, becoming comfortable with awkward relationships, not knowing what your job's going to be till you get there, adapting. And at some point it dawns on people that they want to lean into this and look into conventional work. And whether that's through job coaching, generally, just centering that conversation and doing a traditional job hunt and resume building and using our connections to the community and starting to vision what would accurate right livelihood look like. We've also developed volunteer groups over the years that have gone into local nursing homes or gardens and there's a goat farm and giving us a chance to again work with places depending on our help. EFA is a food distribution place nearby that we have a relationship with. So we've practiced volunteering as a way to practice enjoying being depended on, showing up for work. So we do work with clients and teams directly to meet those goals, to start to better define them, put them down on paper, get your resume together, and then wonder what cold call job search might look like. We also pair up with state-funded Department of Vocational Rehab, and we are officially a vendor for them. So we can do a variety of things, including helping people just sign up and qualify for funding in that way, or stick with us and go through the process of using one of us as a job coach, looking for work, adapting, with the help of the team and the family and DVR, the right kind of job placement that may turn into a career. So, I think that pleasure turns into real focus over time as people come through the groups. The only other thing I want to mention is that direction is one way. Other clients who are regulars know the group so well that familiarity becomes a natural leadership. And almost despite themselves, we start relying on them to help lead these groups, and we need them. And I just want to name as a separate piece here that there is a path towards, Laurie, your role as a peer specialist is something we can help train people into as well. So clients can show interest in wanting to practice leadership and work towards giving back as a peer, someone who has gone far enough in their own recovery to give back to others earlier in their path. So we have a situation in community programs where we can invite clients to commit to some specific steps about how they can join groups, make a commitment, work towards co-facilitation, and then talk some more, even after their team ends, to do a specialized training and become a peer specialist if that's a route they want to take.
With employment, we've also worked for a long time to be cultivating relationships with various businesses in the community that are welcoming and receptive to us helping place people there. So that's been a benefit of having worked in the community for so long this way. Laurie, I'm curious, you had experience with the clubhouse, and now you've been with community programs here as a facilitator and all for so long. And I'm wondering what you make of what we're doing, what you make of what you're doing relative to the spirit of the clubhouse.
Oh, I can definitely speak to that. And for those of you that don't know what a peer support specialist is, I did a training in early 2021. So it's kind of like now I'm kind of like a therapist, but I'm a peer because I have a mental condition myself. And so I can relate to other clients in a special way. But I was a longtime member of Chinook Clubhouse here in Boulder since about 2001. But my dear friend Alan Guitar, who passed away too soon, he started the clubhouse around 1990, I think. and it's based on the Fountain House model. Fountain House was the first clubhouse in New York City, and it evolved, and now there's like 250 clubhouses around the world, and you have to get certified every couple of years, and that entails a couple of people coming out from their office in New York City and making sure that the clubhouse is following their standards. And the standards, like my favorite ones, are staff and clients are equal. Clients help with the running of the business. Somebody mentioned earlier about how, it's a small staff and a lot of clients, so the clients help run the business of the day. Clients are allowed to go to every meeting, any kind of meeting that goes on. And so with my bipolar, Windhorse is so clubhouse like with those standards. I feel understood and respected. And like people have mentioned today, that in these community programs, sometimes you don't even know who's a client and who's staff, because we're just all human beings together having a meaningful experience. So it's not just a job for me working at Windhorse. The contemplative piece and the meditation is helping me be a better person, and I'm just loving it.
I want to give that the space it deserves, Laurie, but you're reminding me, I mean, we're all presenting very well today, and we can, we're professionals and we are clinically trained, but when you're in a group together with us, it's just the fun we have is so contagious, and these little quips that I'm just looking over, and Silvan's got his button down on, but I saw him in a Sasquatch outfit for Halloween, and and Laurie's playing guitar and making up the lyrics for Christmas, and Erik and I, just sweating over the stir fry and trying to figure out how to get food out. You're in it together. Once these groups are happening, there's a lot of dropping of a facade of a certain sort, whether we mean to or not. Your nose is in the dirt, and we're all in it together. So I just want to highlight those moments that we do have an organized and useful and efficient machine that we're running, but each group is its own party.
Yeah, I can attest to that, having been one of the co-directors for a long time. And when I would drop into community programs, that seemed to go someplace else, and I was showing up more just like everybody else in whatever fun or awkward thing they were doing. Laurie, what you described there with the sense of community and what we're doing here, that's one of the coolest things I've heard anybody say about when the work at Windhorse Community Services. And I always loved the clubhouse for just all those things you're naming. And I feel like that spirit really has come into this team at this point in a very nice way.
That's great to hear, Chuck. Yeah, I really appreciate you as a part of our team, Laurie. And some of the work we talk about in Windhorse all together is that we're contagious. We have exchange with each other. And so when people are in groups on purpose and like being there, it feels contagious. Despite themselves, a lot of clients start sharing, participating, leading, or showing up in ways that surprise themselves. There's some kind of magic to the group really enjoying itself and people wanting to be here. And Laurie, you're a big part of that.
I guess I'll just say, that there's an element of like a family feeling to me for a lot of the groups that we do, and especially like, not everybody has family close by. So it's interesting. I don't have family close by either. So, for instance, doing the holiday gatherings and being able to get together on a holiday, and it just felt like family to me, Yeah, I have a warm space in my heart when I think about what's created, together with everybody.
What this reminds me of is how at some point in just about everybody I've ever known that gets to a place where they feel their health getting stronger, more reliable, and organizing their lives more along the lines of their health and stability of mind and stability of moods, gratitude starts coming in, and urges to oftentimes give back and be of help to others. And I'm wondering if Anybody had a comment about that?
I will say something, and I really want to invite others to add to this because it happens often. But over time, you start to see the familiarity result in natural compassion for each other. So whether it's clients actually just calling each other and meeting up outside of it, or the group tapping in during a check-in or a checkout to something that's raw in one person and then opening up themselves within the group and then outside of the group, people end up wanting to take care of each other, even if they showed up to be taken care of. And there's subtle and coarse ways that can play out. The volunteer groups I was talking about, and this idea of becoming a peer specialist counselor. But the small ways is the way I see it. People noticing each other and not fully joined, and then just joining them on the side and chatting it up, or making sure someone asks about someone's family member that's visiting and if they want to take leftovers home. And these kind of natural arising of taking care of each other just seems to come out of the shared endeavor of a group.
I would just agree as well. It's a great bridge for kind of working on your own recovery and then moving towards caring about others. And yeah, that can look a lot of different ways. It could be creating your own group that you want to share. It could be volunteering. You know, some people don't need money. They don't need quote employment, but they do often. I think for most people I know, in order to feel healthy, we need to be able to offer something. So getting to a place where we can feel like we're being of benefit and connected to society, even if, you know, that could look a lot of different ways. And maybe somebody isn't interested in having a full-time job, but they want to volunteer somewhere. And maybe it's just where they're at is being able to offer like an hour a week. And that can be really helpful for whoever they're offering that hour to.
Thank you for listening to Basic Attendance, Relationships that Invite Health Community Programs. We hope you tune in next month as we continue this series with the client's perspective. You can listen to the Windhorse podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Check out www.windhorsecommunityservices/journal to find all podcasts and written journal entries.
Windhorse Journal is a publication of Windhorse Community Services, supporting recovery from mental health challenges at home and in the community since 1981.